Hello listener, if you're hearing this, you've probably seen a fire truck, big red vehicle, loud sirens, emergency lights. You see them rushing to fires, to accidents, to emergencies. You watch them pass and think someone's having a bad day, but you never think about the truck itself, never think about what it carries, what it can do, what it could become during an apocalypse. If you're new here, subscribe and comment where you're listening from. This is the story of how I survived 120 days of the zombie apocalypse living in a fire truck, using water as a weapon, using height as protection, using equipment designed to save lives to end undead ones. This is the story of learning that firefighting tools are survival tools, that water pressure can knock down infected, that a fire engine is the ultimate apocalypse vehicle mobile, armored, equipped, powerful, until the fuel runs out. Then it's just a big red coffin. My name is Jake Morrison, I'm 32 years old. Before the world ended, I was a firefighter engineer operator for the Los Angeles Fire Department, Station 7 B shift. Engineer operator means I drove the truck and operated the pump. I was responsible for engine 7-hour primary fire engineer 2018 Pearson Forcer. I'd been with LAFD for 8 years. Started as a firefighter, worked my way up to engineer. It was good work, paid $85,000 a year with benefits and pension, required EMT certification, fire academy graduation, years of experience, and the ability to operate complex machinery under pressure while people's lives depended on you. Let me tell you about Engine 7, because understanding the truck is understanding how I survived. Engine 7 was a Pearson Forcer, one of the most advanced fire engines in the world. It was massive, 40 feet long, 10 feet wide, 12 feet tall. Weighed 45,000 pounds empty, 55,000 pounds fully loaded. Built on a custom chassis with a Cummins ISL9 diesel engine, 450 horsepower, 1,250 pound-feet of torque. That engine could move 55,000 pounds from 0 to 50 miles per hour in under 30 seconds. It was a beast. The truck had 3 main compartments: the cab where we rode, the pump house where the water pump and controls were, and the hose bed where we carried 1,200 feet of fire hose in various sizes. The cab seated 6 driver, officer, and 4 firefighters. All seats had full safety harnesses. The cab was elevated. Sitting in the driver's seat put you 8 feet off the ground. Good visibility, good protection, but the real power of Engine 7 was the water system. The truck carried a 1,000-gallon water tank built into the chassis. That water fed a hail pump rated at 1,500 gallons per minute at 150 psi. That's serious pressure, serious flow. Fire hoses come in different sizes: 1.5 inch, 1.75 inch, 2.5 inch, and 5-inch supply lines. The smaller hoses deliver 150-250 GPM. The bigger hoses can deliver 500 GPM. At 150 psi, those hoses generate enough force to knock down doors, break windows, push fully grown men backward. That pressure would become my primary weapon. The truck also carried equipment: axes, Halligan bars, pike poles, saws, hydraulic rescue tools, jaws of life, medical equipment, breathing apparatus, protective gear, rope, ladders. A 35-foot extension ladder was mounted on the side. Ground ladders 10-foot, 14-foot, 24-foot were stored in compartments. This truck was a mobile hardware store, a mobile armory. Everything you'd need to break into buildings, break out of buildings, rescue people, or as I'd discover fight infected. The fuel system was critical. The truck had a 100-gallon diesel tank. At highway speeds, Engine 7 got about 4 miles per gallon. That gave roughly 400 miles of range. But running the pump consumed fuel to about 5 gallons per hour. If you ran the pump for 20 hours, you'd burn 100 gallons just pumping water. Fuel management would become a life or death calculation. The truck had 1,000 gallons of water initially. Once you used that water, you needed to refill. Fire engines have 2 ways to get water: from a hydrant using the 5-inch supply line, or from a static source like a pool or pond using a hard suction line. Without access to hydrants or water sources, the 1,000 gallons was all you had. That water would become my most valuable resource. Engine 7 had emergency lights and sirens: bright LED lights visible for miles, air horn and electronic sirens that could hit 120 decibels, loud, very loud. Those lights and sirens were designed to clear traffic, to announce our arrival, to command attention. They'd also attract every infected within a mile radius. I'd learned to use them strategically, as distraction, as deterrent, as psychological weapon. The truck had radio systems: FM radio, CB radio, and department radio, all useless once the infrastructure collapsed. But the truck also had a PA system, a loudspeaker that could project my voice hundreds of yards, that would prove useful for communication, for threats, for psychological warfare against both infected and hostile survivors. That was Engine 7, my truck, my responsibility, my home for 8 years, and as it turned out, my survival vehicle for 120 days of hell. The outbreak started on September 15, 2024, a Saturday. We were on a medical call, cardiac arrest at a residential address. Standard call. We arrived, started CPR, waited for the ambulance. The patient was already gone, had been dead for maybe 10 minutes before we arrived. Family had delayed calling 911. Nothing we could do. Then the patient woke up, reanimated, sat up, grabbed our paramedic Martinez, bit his arm, bit through the uniform, bit through skin, drew blood. Martinez screamed, punched the patient, the corpse trying to get free, but it held on, bit again, deeper this time. Captain Reynolds, our officer, grabbed the corpse, pulled it off Martinez. It turned on Reynolds, grabbed him, bit his face. Reynolds screamed. We all reacted, pulled the thing off him, threw it down, restrained it, but it didn't stop. Didn't respond to pain, didn't respond to reason, just kept trying to bite, to attack, to kill. We called for police backup, got nothing, all units busy. Called for additional medical, got nothing, all ambulances dispatched. We were alone with a violent corpse and 2 injured firefighters. Then the family attacked. The patient's wife and adult son, they went crazy. Same behavior, aggressive, violent, trying to bite. All happening in seconds, total chaos. I ran, I'm not proud of it, but I ran to the engine, jumped in the cab, started the engine. Thank God I had the keys. My crew was still inside the house. I could hear screaming, could hear the sounds of violence. I should have helped, should have gone back, but I didn't. I drove away. Left them, left my crew, saved myself. I was 3 blocks away when the radios started going crazy. Every unit reporting similar incidents. Medical calls turning violent, patients attacking, dead people attacking, mass casualty incidents everywhere. The city was falling apart in real time. I tried to return to Station 7, tried to get home, but the streets were chaos. Accidents, fires, people running, people attacking each other. The infected, because that's what they were, infected were everywhere. I'd drive past an intersection and see dozens of them. Hundreds, just walking, hunting, killing. I couldn't reach the station, couldn't reach safety, couldn't reach anything. I was alone in a fire truck in the middle of Los Angeles while the apocalypse unfolded around me. I made a decision. I'd drive out of the city, head to the mountains, find somewhere isolated, somewhere safe, somewhere the infection hadn't spread yet. But I didn't make it out. Got maybe 5 miles before hitting gridlock. Every road was jammed. Every highway was a parking lot. Abandoned cars, crashed cars, people fleeing on foot, infected attacking people, complete breakdown of order. I was stuck. Engine 7 was trapped in the middle of a dead city with infected everywhere and no way out. That was day 1, September 15th. The day I realized I wasn't escaping, the day I realized I'd have to survive right here, in Los Angeles, in a fire truck, surrounded by millions of infected, with limited fuel, limited water, limited everything. Day 2, I parked Engine 7 in a parking structure, multi-level garage attached to an office building, drove to the top level 5th floor. Up here I had height advantage, could see approaching threats, could defend from elevated position. The top level was open air, no roof. That meant exposure to weather, but also visibility and escape routes. I did inventory of what I had on Engine 7. Water, 1,000 gallons in the tank, full fuel, 95 gallons in the tank used, 5 gallons getting here. Equipment, fire hoses, 1,200 feet total, various sizes, axes, 3 flathead, pickhead, saws to chainsaw, ventilation, saw, hydraulic tools, jaws of life, spreaders, cutters, ladders, 35-foot extension, 24-foot straight, 14-foot roof, 10-foot folding, medical, full paramedic kit, bandages, medications, for supplies, breathing apparatus, 6 SCBA units, self-contained breathing apparatus, protective gear, 6 sets of turnout gear coats, pants, boots, helmets, gloves, rope, 500 feet, various types, hand tools, wrenches, screwdrivers, bolt cutters, sledgehammer, emergency, flares, fire extinguishers, flashlights, batteries, food. None. We'd restocked that morning but hadn't loaded food yet. Personal items, my wallet, phone dying, water bottle empty, nothing else. I had equipment, had water, had fuel, had shelter, but I had no food. No sustainable water source once the 1,000 gallons ran out. No long-term plan beyond surviving today. Day 3, I learned that the fire truck attracted attention. The bright red color was visible from blocks away. Infected were drawn to it. I'd see them entering the parking structure, climbing the ramps, heading toward the top level. They couldn't climb well, their motor control was too degraded, but they could walk up ramps, could follow the path to me. I used the PA system to make noise, drew infected to specific locations, then used the water hose on them, connected a 1.75-inch hose to the pump, charged the line, opened the valve, let water flow, aimed at the infected climbing the ramp, opened the nozzle, water blasted out at 150 psi, 200 GPM, hit the infected like a battering ram, knocked them down, knocked them backwards, sent them tumbling down the ramp. Some broke bones from the fall, some just got back up, but the water pressure was effective. It wasn't killing them, just knocking them down, creating distance, but that was enough. That was survival. I used 50 gallons of water that day fighting off infected, knocked down maybe 30 of them, learned important lessons. Water pressure is an effective non-lethal deterrent. Infected can't advance against 150 psi flow. Falling from height damages infected broken bones, reduced mobility. I could control the battlefield using water, but I'd also learned I was burning through water fast. 50 gallons to fight 30 infected. At that rate, my 1,000 gallons would last 20 engagements, maybe 600 infected total before I ran out. After that, I'd have no defense. I needed to conserve water, needed to find more water, needed a sustainable strategy. Day 5, I found water. The office building attached to the parking structure had a rooftop water tank, one of those large tanks that provides water pressure for the building. The tank held maybe 10,000 gallons. I could see it from the top of the parking structure. If I could access it, I could refill engine 7 indefinitely. 10 refills, 10,000 gallons, enough to last months. But getting to it meant leaving the truck. Meant crossing a sky bridge, connecting the parking structure to the office building. Meant entering a building that might be full of infected. Risk. Huge risk. But necessary risk. I suited up in turnout gear, full protective equipment, coat, pants, boots, helmet, gloves, SCBA, mask for protection more than breathing, didn't want to risk infection through aerosol. Grabbed an axe, grabbed a halogen bar, tools designed to break through doors and walls, tools that could break through infected skulls. I crossed the sky bridge. The office building was dark. Silent. I used my flashlight, cleared the area carefully, found infected 3 of them, office workers, still wearing business clothes, wandering the hallways. They saw me, rushed me, not fast infected, don't run, but purposeful, aggressive. I used the halogen bar, swung hard, hit the first infected in the head. The bar crushed its skull. It dropped. A second infected grabbed me. I used the axe, chopped into its shoulder. It didn't let go. I chopped again. Into its head. It dropped. The third infected was close. I kicked it, created distance, then used the axe. 1 swing, clean hit, down, 3 infected dead. My hands were shaking. I'd killed before on day 1, during the chaos, but this was different. This was deliberate. This was hunting them in their territory. This was committing to violence. I found the roof access, climbed to the roof, found the water tank. It was full. I could see the water level through the access panel. 10,000 gallons, enough to survive for months. But I needed a way to transfer water from this tank to engine 7. Needed hose, needed a pump, needed infrastructure. I could use engine 7's own equipment. Could run a supply line from the water tank to the truck. Could use the truck's pump to pull water from the tank into the truck's tank. It would work. Would take maybe an hour to transfer 1,000 gallons, but it would work. Day 6, I did my first refill. Ran a 100-foot section of 5-inch supply line from the water tank to engine 7. Used the truck's hard suction capability. The pump could pull water through the hose using vacuum pressure. Started the pump, opened the intake valve. Water flowed. The pump pulled water from the rooftop tank through the hose into engine 7's tank. In 45 minutes, I'd transferred 1,000 gallons. My tank was full again. I had water, sustainable water. 10,000 gallons in the rooftop tank meant 10 refills. Meant I could use water liberally for defense. Meant I could survive for months. This changed everything. Day 8, I started offensive operations. Instead of waiting for infected to come to me, I'd hunt them. I'd drive engine 7 through the streets, find groups of infected, use water to disperse them, clear areas. Why? Because I needed supplies, needed food, needed to scavenge, and that required clear areas, required safe routes, required offensive action. I'd drive slowly through streets. When I saw infected groups of 10, 20, 30, I'd charge the water lines. 2 lines. One 1.75-inch line from each side of the truck. My crew compartment had positions for firefighters to operate hoses from the side of the truck. I'd pre-connect the hoses. Then, when I encountered infected, I'd run to the side, open the nozzles, and blast water. The force would knock them down, scatter them, create cleared paths. Then I'd drive through, move to a new area, repeat. I cleared 3 city blocks on day 8, knocked down maybe 200 infected total, used 400 gallons of water. Refilled from the rooftop tank that evening, cost 20 gallons of diesel to drive and run the pump, but gain access to 3 city blocks with minimal infected presence, access to buildings I could scavenge, access to supplies. Day 10, I hit a grocery store. The store had been looted, shelves were mostly empty, but I found supplies hidden in the back room, canned goods, dry food, bottled water, redundant but useful, first aid supplies. Loaded everything onto engine 7, took multiple trips, used the water hose to keep infected away while I worked. By end of day, I had 30 days of food, 30 days of survival. I'd established a pattern, a routine, a strategy. Morning, refill water if needed, 10 minutes midday, offensive sweep, clear 2 to 3 blocks, 200 gallons water, 10 gallons diesel. Afternoon, scavenge cleared areas, food, supplies, equipment. Evening, return to parking structure, elevated defensive position. Night, maintenance, rest, planning. This was working. I was surviving. I was actually thriving in a strange way. Engine 7 was the perfect apocalypse vehicle. Mobile, armored, equipped. I could go anywhere, fight anything, collect everything. As long as I had fuel and water, I was unstoppable. Day 15, I realized I wasn't alone. I saw other survivors, a group of maybe 10 people fortified in a high breeze. They saw Engine 7, waved, signaled for help, wanted me to rescue them, wanted me to evacuate them to safety. I didn't stop, didn't help, couldn't help. Engine 7 could seat 6 people. There were 10 of them. I'd have to make 2 trips. And going into a building full of infected to rescue strangers was suicide. Even if I succeeded, then what? Where would I take them? My parking structure, my limited supplies, my water source. They'd consume resources. They'd make noise. They'd attract infected. They'd make my survival harder. So I didn't stop. Drove past. Ignored their pleas. Saved myself. Again, like I'd saved myself on day 1 by abandoning my crew. I was good at survival, bad at humanity. The apocalypse was turning me into something cold, something selfish, something that prioritized existence over empathy. But I was alive, and they probably weren't, and that's what mattered. Survival, at any cost. That was the new rule, the only rule. Stay alive. Everything else was negotiable. Day 16, I refined my water tactics. I'd learned that different nozzle settings created different effects. Fire nozzles have 3 main settings: straight stream, concentrated jet, fog pattern, wide spray, and shut-off. Each setting was useful for different situations. Straight stream, maximum range 100 plus feet, maximum force, narrow impact area, good for knocking down single infected at distance, could punch through car windows, could knock an infected off their feet from 80 feet away. Use this for precision targeting. Fog pattern, short range 30 to 40 feet, lower pressure, wide coverage area, created a wall of water, good for crowd control, could push back groups of 10 to 20 infected simultaneously, created a barrier they couldn't cross. Used this for defensive perimeters. I practiced, spent an hour on day 16 just practicing with different nozzle settings, learned the effective ranges, learned how much water each setting consumed, learned how to switch between settings quickly under pressure. This was combat training, water combat, and I was becoming proficient. Day 18, I encountered my first serious infected horde. I was clearing a street when I turned a corner and saw them, hundreds of infected, maybe 300, maybe more, filling the entire street, wall-to-wall infected. They saw Engine 7, started moving toward me, not fast infected, never run but relentless. A slow tide of death approaching. I had options: run, use fuel to escape, fight, use water to disperse them, or maneuver, try to go around. I chose fight, because running meant giving up territory, and I needed this territory, needed access to the buildings here, needed to clear this area for scavenging. I set up a defensive position, parked the truck, connected both sidelines, 1.75-inch lines on each side, charged both lines, positioned myself so I could switch between lines quickly, then opened fire. Water blasted out, fog pattern, wide coverage, hit the infected at the front of the horde, knocked them down, they fell. The ones behind them stumbled over the fallen, created a pile, created a barrier, but they kept coming, kept climbing over their fallen, kept advancing. I switched to straight stream, targeted individuals, knocked them down one by one, But for every infected I knocked down, 3 more took its place. The horde was too big, too many. I was using water too fast. Had already burned through 200 gallons. Still had 200 plus infected standing. At this rate, I'd run out of water before I ran out of infected. I revised strategy, used the PA system, blasted the air horn 120 decibels of sound. The infected reacted, turned toward the sound. All of them, like a hive mind responding to stimulus. I honked again, held it. They all converged on the truck, focused on the source of sound. Perfect. I hit them with both lines simultaneously. Fog pattern on both sides. Created a water wall 20 feet wide. The pressure was massive, 400 GPM combined flow. The infected at the front were hammered, knocked flat, couldn't stand against that pressure, couldn't advance. The ones behind them tried to push forward, got hit by water, got knocked down, created a pile of bodies 5 feet high. I maintained pressure for 2 minutes, 2 full minutes of continuous flow, burned through 150 more gallons, but created a barrier, created a wall of fallen infected that the others couldn't easily cross. The horde was disrupted, broken, scattered. I shut off the water, waited. The infected slowly reorganized, started climbing over the pile, but they were slower now, disorganized. I hit them again, short bursts. Knocked down the ones who climbed highest, kept them pinned, kept them unable to advance. After 20 minutes of this alternating between bursts of water and waiting, the infected gave up. Not consciously, they don't think, but they lost interest, started wandering away, dispersing. The concentrated horde became scattered individuals, manageable threat levels. I'd won, but it had cost me 500 gallons of water, half my tank, plus 10 gallons of diesel running the pump, plus 20 minutes of extreme stress. But I'd defeated a horde of 300 infected without firing a shot, without getting injured, without risking close combat. Water was a weapon, a powerful weapon, but expensive, very expensive. Day 20, I found another fire station, Station 12, about 2 miles from my parking structure. The station was abandoned, the crew had either fled or died, but the station had supplies, 2 fire engines still parked in the bays, fuel, equipment, food. The crew had kept emergency rations, and most importantly, another 1,000-gallon water source in each engine's tank. I couldn't drive both engines, but I could siphon their fuel, could take their supplies, could potentially use their water if needed. This was a gold mine, a military depot, everything I needed. I spent 2 hours loading supplies from Station 12 onto Engine 7, took fuel first, siphoned 80 gallons from the 2 engines, bringing my tank to full capacity, 100 gallons, took food 60 days worth of emergency rations, took medical supplies, took spare equipment, took ammunition. Station 12 had firearms, not standard for fire stations, but this crew had obviously prepared for worst-case scenarios. 2 shotguns, for pistols, maybe 300 rounds total, defensive weapons, backup for when water wasn't enough. But the most valuable thing I took was knowledge. Station 12 had a map on the wall, a map of the entire LAFD district, showing all fire stations, all hydrant locations, all major water infrastructure. This map was gold. This map showed me every potential water source in Los Angeles, every fire station with fuel and supplies, every strategic location I could exploit. I took the map, studied it, counted fire stations, 106 stations in LAFD. Even if half were destroyed or inaccessible, that was 50 stations with fuel and supplies. That was months of survival, maybe years if I was careful. I wasn't alone in this city. I had infrastructure, had resources, had a network of supply depots scattered across LA. I just had to reach them. Day 25, I encountered hostile survivors. I was scavenging a warehouse when I heard engines, multiple vehicles, a convoy, 3 pickup trucks, armed survivors. They saw Engine 7, saw the value, wanted it. They surrounded my position, blocked exits, got out with guns, called out, "Exit the vehicle, hands up, we're taking the fire truck." I considered my options. I had weapons, the shotguns from Station 12, but they had numbers, 6 armed men, good positions, cover if I shot first. I might kill 1 or 2, but they'd kill me, guaranteed. I used water, connected a line, charged it, called back, "You take 1 more step." I opened fire, and I'm not talking about bullets, they laughed. It's a water hose. We have guns. You have guns. I have 1,000 gallons of water at 150 psi. You know what that does to a human body from 30 feet? Same thing it does to doors. Breaks them, shatters them, knocks them unconscious from blunt force trauma. Your guns shoot bullets. My gun shoots 200 gallons per minute of kinetic energy. Who wins? They hesitated, not sure if I was bluffing. I wasn't. I opened the nozzle slightly, let water spray visibly, showed them I was serious. The leader, older guy, maybe 50, called out, "All right, let's talk. We don't want trouble. We just need supplies. You've got a fire truck, must have food, water, equipment. Share with us. We'll leave you alone. No, be reasonable. There's 6 of us. 1 of you, we can take that truck by force if we have to. Try, I'll drown 3 of you before you shoot me. Then the truck's pump will keep running, will flood this entire warehouse. You'll have to swim to get the truck. Good luck hot wiring a fire engine while treading water with your buddies' corpses floating around you." I was bluffing about the pump continuing to run. It wouldn't, but they didn't know that. Didn't know how fire trucks worked. And the image I'd painted, drowning corpses, flooding, was enough. They backed off, left, drove away, but they'd be back. Or others like them. The fire truck was too valuable, too visible, too desirable. I'd have to be more careful, more hidden, more strategic. The infected were predictable. Survivors were not. Survivors were dangerous. Day 31, month in the apocalypse. I moved bases. The parking structure was too exposed, too visible. I needed somewhere more secure, more hidden, somewhere I could defend better, somewhere with resources. I found it. A water treatment plant. The plant was on the edge of the city, large facility, surrounded by a fence, multiple buildings, and most importantly, water. Millions of gallons of water. The plant wasn't operational, power was out, but the storage tanks were full. The clarification pools were full. The reservoirs were full. This place had enough water for 10,000 people for a year. For me alone. Unlimited water forever. I drove Engine 7 into the plant, broke through the gate, used the truck's mass as a battering ram, crashed through the chain link fence, drove to the central building, parked inside a maintenance garage, closed the garage door. Hidden, secure, protected. The plant had other advantages. High walls, limited entry points, elevated positions for surveillance, maintenance vehicles I could use for parts, fuel storage for the plants, backup generators, and isolation. Infected were rare out here. Too far from population centers, too little to attract them. I'd found the perfect base. Day 32, I fortified the water plant, used equipment from Engine 7 and materials from the plant, created barriers at entry points, set up early warning systems, tin cans on strings, basically, but effective, created elevated observation posts, mapped the entire facility, identified defensible positions, identified escape routes, turned the plant into a fortress. The water plant had a control room with maps and schematics. I studied them, learned how the plant worked, learned where the water came from, aqueducts from the mountains, learned where it went, distribution to the city, learned how the pumps worked, how the filtration worked, how everything worked. The plant was offline now, no power, but the knowledge was useful. Understanding infrastructure was understanding survival. Day 35, I started long-range operations. Now that I had a secure base and unlimited water, I could range farther, could explore more, could hit targets across the city. I planned routes using the LAFD map, identified high-value targets, fire stations, fuel and supplies, grocery stores, food, pharmacies, medicine, gun stores, weapons, hardware stores, tools. I'd drive to a target, sometimes 5 to 10 miles from the plant, would use water to clear the area, would scavenge quickly, would return to the plant before dark. Each expedition consumed fuel 20 to 30 gallons for a full day of operations, but brought back supplies worth the cost. Food, medicine, weapons, tools, equipment. I was accumulating a stockpile, building reserves, preparing for long-term survival. Day 38, I encountered a functional community, a fortified apartment complex, maybe 50 survivors. They'd barricaded the ground floor, lived on upper floors, had gardens on the roof, had security, had organization, a micro-civilization, and they wanted to trade. They'd seen Engine 7, seen the LAFD logo, knew what I had, called out, "Firefighter, we need water. Our tank ran dry. We'll trade food, medicine, whatever you need, just bring us water." I considered it. I had unlimited water. They had supplies I might need. Trading made sense, but trading meant revealing my capability. Meant showing weakness, showing I needed their supplies. Meant creating dependency, they'd want more water later. Meant risk. But I also needed community. Needed information. Needed to know what was happening beyond my immediate area. Needed human contact. The isolation was affecting me. I could feel it. Feel the emptiness. Feel the loneliness. Feel the slow erosion of my humanity. I made the trade. Used Engine 7's pump to fill their water tank. Took 2 hours. transferred 5,000 gallons from a nearby hydrant to their tank, cost me 15 gallons of diesel, but gained me information. They told me about survivor settlements, about military safe zones, about infected patterns, supplies. They gave me medical supplies I was low on, and most importantly contact, human contact, conversation, proof that I wasn't the last person alive. They asked me to stay, join their community, live with them, contribute my skills and equipment, be part of something larger than survival, be part of civilization rebuilding. I refused, because joining meant giving up Engine 7, meant sharing resources, meant committee decisions and group dynamics and all the complications of society. I'd survived alone for 38 days, survived well, thrived even. I didn't need a community, didn't need others, needed solitude, needed control, needed independence, but I told them I'd return, would trade again, would help if they needed water, would maintain contact, because even though I didn't need them, it was comforting to know they existed, to know that civilization might rebuild, to know that maybe there'd be something worth living for beyond just not dying. Day 42, I had my first equipment failure. The pump started making strange noises, grinding, clunking, not good sounds. I shut it down, inspected, found the problem, worn bearings. The pump had been running almost continuously for 42 days. Thousands of gallons pumped, hundreds of hours of operation, way beyond normal duty cycle. The bearings were failing. If the pump failed completely, Engine 7 was useless. Just a big red truck, no water, no weapon, no defense. I'd be vulnerable, exposed, dead. I needed parts, needed replacement bearings, needed mechanical expertise I didn't have. I was an engineer, operator, I knew how to run the pump, but rebuilding it, different skill entirely. I needed help, needed someone who knew pumps, knew mechanics, knew how to fix this. The apartment complex community had an engineer, retired guy, used to maintain industrial equipment. He knew pumps. I went back, asked for help. He agreed in exchange for water deliveries, a retainer. I'd bring them water once a week, and he'd maintain Engine 7's pump, keep it running, keep me alive. Deal. I had a mechanic, had support, had backup. The isolation was breaking, community was forming. Not the community of joining a group and losing independence, but community of mutual support, of trade, of cooperation without obligation. I could work with that. Day 45. Fuel became my primary concern. I'd been using 20 to 30 gallons per day. At that rate, my 100-gallon tank lasted 3 to 4 days. I'd been refueling every 3 days by hitting fire stations and siphoning their tanks. But I'd hit most of the accessible stations. The remaining stations were either too far, too dangerous, or too depleted. I was running out of easy fuel sources. I calculated I'd used approximately 1,200 gallons of fuel in 45 days. There were maybe 106 fire stations in LA. Each station had 2 to 3 engines. Each engine had a 100-gallon tank. Total available fuel, roughly 20,000 to 30,000 gallons across the city. I'd already consumed maybe 15% of the available supply. At current consumption, I had maybe 250 more days of fuel. 8 months. That seemed like a lot, but it wasn't, because fuel degrades, because stations might be inaccessible, because I didn't actually have access to all that fuel. Realistically, maybe 100 days of fuel remaining. 3 months. Then I'd be stranded. Then Engine 7 would become a stationary base instead of a mobile fortress. I needed to reduce consumption, needed to conserve, needed to find alternative fuel sources or alternative transportation. The clock was ticking. The fuel gauge was the countdown timer to my death. Day 50, I modified my operations. New rules: limit expeditions to twice per week, save fuel, use water more conservatively, reduce pump runtime, prioritize targets with fuel rewards, gas stations, depots, establish static defenses at water plant, reduce need to drive scout on foot, when possible save fuel for emergencies. These changes would extend my fuel supply, would buy me time, but also made me more vulnerable, made me less mobile, made me more dependent on my base. If the base was compromised, I'd have limited ability to relocate. I was trading mobility for longevity, hoping it was the right trade, knowing I might not find out until it was too late. I'd survived 50 days, 1 month and 20 days. Through infected hordes and hostile survivors and equipment failures and isolation. Engine 7 was my home, my weapon, my lifeline. The water system was my power. The fuel was my constraint. And somewhere in the math of gallons and miles and days, I was calculating whether I'd survive or just postponing the inevitable. But I was alive, still here, still fighting, still refusing to die. That was enough for day 50. Had to be enough. Because the alternative, giving up, accepting death, wasn't an option. Not while I had water. Not while I had fuel. Not while I had engine 7. Not while I had fight left in me. I'd survive, day by day, gallon by gallon. Until I couldn't. Until the fuel ran out, or the water ran dry, or the infected finally overwhelmed me. But not today. Not day 50. Today I survived. Tomorrow I'd do it again. That was the plan. That was the only plan. Survive today. Repeat tomorrow. Forever. Day 51. I woke up to screaming. Not my screaming, someone else's. Outside the water plant. Beyond the fence. I grabbed the binoculars. Looked. Saw a woman running. Being chased by infected. Maybe 20 infected. She was heading toward the plant. Toward me. Toward safety. I had a choice. Open the gate and let her in. Risk infected entering. Or let her die, maintain security. I chose security. Watched through binoculars as the infected caught her. Watched her die. Heard her screams stop. Did nothing, because opening that gate meant compromising my base. Meant risking everything I'd built. One life wasn't worth that risk. She died 50 yards from the fence. Close enough that I could see her face. See the terror. See the moment she realized I wasn't coming. See the betrayal. See the end. Then I looked away. Couldn't watch anymore. But couldn't unhear the screams. They stayed with me. Still stay with me now. The price of survival. The cost of staying alive. Sometimes the cost is watching others die. Sometimes you're the one who chooses not to help. Day 53. The apartment complex called for help. They were under attack. Major infected assault. Hundreds of infected converging on their building. They'd held the ground floor but were getting overwhelmed. They needed support. Needed water. Needed engine 7, I responded. Not out of altruism, out of pragmatism. They were my trading partners. My mechanic was there. If they fell, I'd lose valuable assets. Plus, I could use this, could learn from this. Could test my tactics against a major assault in an urban environment. Could gather intelligence on infected behavior in large groups. I drove engine 7 to the apartment complex. Arrived to chaos. Infected everywhere. Maybe 400 to 500 total. Surrounding the building, trying to break through barricades. The survivors were fighting from windows, throwing things, firing the occasional gunshot, but mostly just trying to hold on. I positioned engine 7 between the building and the largest concentration of infected. Got on the PA system. Survivors, get away from the windows. I'm opening fire. Then I charged both lines. Both 2.5-inch lines. The big ones. Maximum flow. Maximum pressure. 500 GPM per line. 1000 GPM total. The entire 1,000-gallon tank flowing out in 1 minute if I wasn't careful. I opened fire, both lines. Straight stream, targeted the densest groups. Water hit them like a freight train. Bodies flew backward, fell, knocked into each other. Created cascading failures. The ones in the back pushed forward. The ones in the front couldn't stand against the pressure. They piled up. Created a wall of bodies. I swept the lines left and right. Cleared a 90-degree arc in front of the building. Knocked down maybe 200 infected in 2 minutes. Used 400 gallons of water. The tank was half empty. But I'd broken the assault. Created breathing room. Given the survivors time to regroup. I switched to defensive mode. Shut off one line, conserve water. Used single line in short bursts. Knocked down infected who got too close. Maintained a perimeter. Held the line for 30 minutes while the survivors reinforced their barricades. Used another 300 gallons. My tank was at 300 gallons remaining. Running low. But the infected assault was broken. They were dispersing. Wandering away, losing coordination. Whatever drove them to mass attack had faded. I'd won, but it had cost me 700 gallons of water. Plus 20 gallons of fuel. Plus ammunition. Some survivors had fired weapons to support me. Plus time, plus risk. But I'd saved the community. Maintained my trading relationship. Proven engine 7's value. Proven my value. And learned something. Water could defeat infected hordes if used correctly, if used aggressively, if used without hesitation. The survivors thanked me, offered everything they had. Food, medicine, weapons. I took fuel. They had a stockpile of diesel they'd scavenged from trucks. Maybe 100 gallons. That was worth more than thanks. That was life extension. That was time. Day 56. I explored a new area. Industrial district. Warehouses and factories. Looking for fuel sources. Found something better. A fuel depot. Commercial fueling station for trucks and heavy equipment. Had underground tanks. Tens of thousands of gallons of diesel. Jackpot. But the depot was infested. Maybe 100 infected inside the fence. They'd wandered in and gotten trapped. The fence kept them contained, but also kept me out. I needed to clear them, needed access to that fuel, needed it desperately. I used a new tactic. Drove Engine 7 to the fence, used the PA system, made noise, maximum volume, air horn, sirens, everything. Drew all the infected to one side of the fence. They pressed against the fence. Tried to reach the truck, couldn't get through the chain link. I got out, walked around to the opposite side of the depot, climbed the fence, used a ladder from Engine 7, got inside while all the infected were distracted, moved quickly to the fuel pumps, found the manual release, opened the access panel, connected a hose from Engine 7's tank to the depot's pump, started the transfer gravity feed. No power needed. Diesel flowed. The infected figured out I was inside, started moving toward me, but I was fast, faster than them. Filled Engine 7's tank in 5 minutes, 100 gallons, then kept filling. Filled jerry cans, filled every container I had another 50 gallons. Total haul 150 gallons, enough for 5 to 7 days of operations, or 15 days if I was conservative. I climbed back over the fence while the infected were still shuffling toward my previous position. Back to Engine 7, drove away, they never got close. Perfect operation, zero risk, maximum reward. This was how I'd survive. Find resources, extract efficiently, minimize exposure, maximize gains. Day 62 months in, I did a full assessment. Took stock of everything, where I was going, what I had, what I needed. Current status, location, water treatment plant, secure base vehicle, Engine 7, good condition, minor maintenance issues, fuel 200 gallons stored, 100 gallons stored, 100 gallon tank, full 300 total water, unlimited millions of gallons of plant food, 90 days supply from scavenging and trading, ammunition, 200 rounds firearms, unlimited water, primary weapon, medical, good supply equipment, excellent fire tools, hand tools, weapons, threats, fuel depletion, 300 gallons equals 10 to 15 days of operation, equipment failure, pump bearings, wearing, tires, aging, infected hordes, increasing in frequency and size, hostile survivors, raiders, gangs, desperate people, isolation effects, psychological deterioration, winter approaching, cold weather, reduced mobility strategy, reduced fuel consumption to 15 gallons per day, conservation mode, establish multiple fuel caches, distribute risk, strengthen base defenses, reduce need to leave, maintain trading relationships, community support, scout for long-term fuel solutions, renewable, alternative. The math was simple. 300 gallons at 15 gallons per day equals 20 days, 3 weeks. Then I'd need to find more fuel. I'd found maybe 1,500 gallons total in 60 days. At that rate, I could sustain for another 100 days. Day 160. 5 months total survival. That seemed achievable, unless something went wrong. Unless fuel sources dried up, unless I got injured, unless equipment failed, unless any of 1,000 variables changed, then I'd die. Simple as that. Day 65, something went wrong. Engine 7 broke down. Not the pumper engine, the truck engine. I was driving back from a scavenging run when I heard knocking. Engine knock. Bad sound. Very bad sound. Then the engine lost power, started smoking. I limped back to the water plant, barely made it. Parked in the garage, shut down. The engine was done. Seized bearings, maybe. Rod knock. Something catastrophic. Something I couldn't fix. I had the best apocalypse vehicle in the world, and it was broken, dead, useless. I had water, had equipment, had weapons, but couldn't move them, couldn't use them effectively. I was stranded at the water plant with no mobility, no ability to scavenge, no ability to refuel, no ability to escape if threatened. I was trapped. The mechanic from the apartment complex came, assessed the damage, delivered the bad news, complete engine rebuild needed. We'd need parts, need tools, need time, weeks, maybe months, if we had everything, which we don't. That engine's done. Fire truck's done. Can we replace the engine? Swap in a different one? From what, another fire truck? Sure, if you can find one, and if we can move it here, and if we can lift a 2,000-pound engine out of one truck and into another, with what equipment? This isn't a equipped shop, this is the apocalypse. We barely have hand tools. He was right. I was fucked. Engine 7 was dead. My mobility was gone. My advantage was lost. I was just another survivor in a fortified location, waiting, hoping, slowly dying as resources depleted and threats increased and options decreased. Day 68. I found a solution, sort of. The water plant had vehicles, maintenance trucks, small pickups used by plant workers before the outbreak. I found one with keys still in it. Tried to start it, dead battery. But the truck looked functional otherwise. If I could charge the battery, maybe I could get it running. Maybe I could have mobility again. Not engine 7 mobility. This truck couldn't carry 1,000 gallons of water, couldn't operate a pump, couldn't fight infected hordes, but it could drive, could scavenge, could refuel, could maintain my supply lines. Better than nothing, much better than being stranded. I used engine 7's battery to jumpstart the pickup. It worked. The engine turned over, ran rough, had been sitting for months, but ran. I had transportation, limited, vulnerable, but functional. I transferred supplies from engine 7 to the pickup, took the shotguns, took medical supplies, took the map, took everything portable and useful, left the heavy equipment, left the hoses, left the pump, left the 1,000-gallon tank, left everything that made engine 7 special, left my advantage. Day 70, I did my first run in the pickup. Felt wrong, felt exposed. The pickup had no armor, no defensive capability, was just a civilian truck. If I encountered infected, I'd have to use guns, have to waste ammunition, have to take risks. Not like engine 7 where water solved everything. This was survival on hard mode. I drove carefully, avoided main streets, took back roads, moved slowly, watched for threats, made it to a gas station, found fuel, maybe 50 gallons remaining in the underground tank, siphoned it manually, took an hour, exhausting work, but got the fuel, got what I needed, survived another day. Day 75, the apartment complex was attacked again. Bigger assault this time. Maybe 800 infected. Coordinated attack from multiple directions. They called for help, called for engine 7, called for water support. I had to tell them engine 7 was dead. Couldn't respond, couldn't help. They were on their own. They fought for 3 days. I heard gunfire constantly. Heard explosions. They were using improvised explosives. Heard screaming, then silence. On day 78, the gunfire stopped. The screaming stopped. Everything stopped. I drove past on day 79. The building was breached. Windows broken. Doors smashed. Blood everywhere. Bodies everywhere. Infected wandering through the building. The community was gone. All 50 people. Dead or infected. Gone. My mechanic was dead. My trading partners were dead. My connection to other survivors was severed. I was alone again, truly alone. And I couldn't help but think, if engine 7 had been operational, could I have saved them? Could water have turned the tide? Could I have made a difference? Or would I have just died with them? Would helping have been suicide? I'd never know, because I hadn't helped. Couldn't help. Engine 7 was broken, and I was powerless, and 50 people died while I hid in my base and did nothing. Another tally mark on the list of people I'd failed to save. Another weight on the conscience I was trying very hard not to acknowledge. Another reason to question whether survival was worth the cost. Day 80, I salvaged engine 7, couldn't fix it, couldn't move it, but could strip it, could take parts, could use the equipment. I removed the pump, disconnected it completely. It was heavy, maybe 400 pounds, but I used a hoist from the plant, lifted it out, set it up as a stationary pump, connected it to the plant's water system. Now I had a fixed defensive position, could pump water from the plant through hoses, could defend the perimeter. Not mobile, but effective. Engine 7's heart was still beating, just in a different chest. I removed the water tank, couldn't move it. Too heavy, but could use it as storage. 1,000 gallons of clean water storage. Useful for drinking water, for emergency reserves. I removed all the equipment, all the hoses, all the tools, all the weapons, turned engine 7 into a storage unit, stripped it of everything useful, left just the shell. The bright red shell that had been my home, my weapon, my identity for 80 days. Now it was just a husk, empty, dead, a monument to better times. Day 85, winter started hitting, temperature dropped, rain became frequent, the pickup truck had no heater broken. I was freezing during night runs, getting soaked during rain, getting sick at a cold, developed a cough. No medicine could fix it fully, just had to endure, had to survive through it. Add weather to the list of things trying to kill me. The cold affected the infected too. They moved slower, were less aggressive. The cold seemed to slow their metabolism, made them sluggish, easier to avoid, easier to fight if necessary. Silver lining, not much of one, but something. Day 88, I found survivors at a hospital. They'd fortified the upper floors, had maybe 30 people, doctors, nurses, medical professionals. They had supplies, had medicine, had knowledge. They wanted to trade, offered medical services in exchange for fuel and supplies. I agreed, made a deal, brought them fuel 20 gallons. Got medical treatment. They treated my respiratory infection, gave me antibiotics, gave me a checkup, First medical care in 3 months. Felt like luxury. Felt like civilization. Felt like maybe the world wasn't completely dead. They asked about Engine 7, word had spread. People knew about the fire truck, about the water weapon, about the firefighter who'd survived alone using water to fight infected. I was becoming a legend, a myth. The guy with the fire truck. Except I didn't have the fire truck anymore. Had a broken shell and a pickup. Had a reputation I couldn't live up to. Had expectations I couldn't meet. I told them the truth. Engine 7 was dead. I was just another survivor now. Just another person trying not to die. The legend was over. The reality was survival, nothing more. They seemed disappointed, like I'd let them down. Like I owed them something. Owed them the fire truck. Owed them the capability. Owed them salvation. I owed them nothing, but I felt the weight of their disappointment anyway. Day 93 months exactly I returned to the water plant, locked the gate, sat in the garage with the stripped Engine 7, looked at it, remembered the 90 days, remembered the battles, the victories, the failures, the people I'd saved, the people I'd saved, the people I'd failed to save, the people I'd chosen not to save, remembered becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone cold. Someone calculating, someone who valued survival over humanity, someone who let people die to protect resources, someone who'd become exactly what the apocalypse required. A survivor, nothing more, nothing less, just a survivor. I'd made it 90 days. 3 months. Longer than most. Longer than I'd expected. But at what cost? I'd lost my crew. Lost my vehicle. Lost my advantage. Lost my connections. Lost my humanity, bit by bit. And for what? To survive another day. To repeat this existence indefinitely. To keep doing the math of gallons and miles and lives and deaths until eventually the math didn't work and I died anyway. I didn't have answers, just had the present. Day 90, still alive, still fighting, still refusing to die even when death seemed easier. Still holding on to something I couldn't quite name, hope, maybe, or stubbornness, or just biological imperative. The body refusing to stop even when the mind wanted to. The heart continuing to beat even when the soul was empty. That was day 90, that was survival. That was all I had. Tomorrow would be day 91 and I'd do it again. Because I didn't know how to do anything else. Because stopping meant dying and I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. So I'd keep going. Keep surviving, keep fighting. Until I couldn't. Until the fuel ran out, or the infected overwhelmed me, or winter killed me, or I finally broke completely. But not today. Not day 90. Today I survived. Tomorrow I'd try again. That was the plan. That was always the plan. Survive today. Repeat tomorrow. Forever. Or until forever ended. Whichever came first. Day 91, I realized I was running out of accessible fuel. I'd hit every gas station within 10 miles. Every fire station. Every depot. The remaining fuel was either too far, too dangerous, or already depleted by other survivors. I had maybe 150 gallons stored at the plant, at 15 gallons per day of conservative use. That was 10 days. After that, I'd be walking, or staying put, or dying. The countdown had begun. 10 days until immobility. 20 days until complete resource depletion. 30 days until starvation. The math was simple. The outcome was inevitable. Unless I found more fuel. Unless something changed. Unless I got lucky. Day 93, I got desperate. Drove 15 miles to a truck stop on the interstate. Risky long distance. Heavy infected presence on highways. But truck stops had massive fuel reserves. Thousands of gallons. If I could access even a fraction, I'd buy months of survival. Worth the risk. Had to be. The truck stop was a war zone. Dozens of abandoned trucks. Hundreds of infected wandering the parking lot. They'd been drawn here by something, maybe survivors who tried to scavenge and failed. Maybe just random congregation. Either way, I couldn't drive through, couldn't get to the fuel pumps, couldn't access the underground tanks. I was blocked. I tried the water tactic. Brought a hose and portable pump from the plant, set up at the edge of the parking lot, used the pump to draw water from a decorative pond, sprayed infected, cleared a path, got maybe 50 feet before the pump seized, overheated. The pump wasn't designed for this, wasn't a fire pump, just a utility pump. It failed. I was stuck, surrounded by infected on 3 sides, had to retreat, abandon the mission, burned 30 gallons of diesel for nothing. No fuel gained, 120 gallons remaining, 8 days. Day 96, I met another survivor, a kid, maybe 16 years old, wandering alone, scavenging. I almost shot him, thought he was infected at first, but he called out, spoke, proved he was human. He'd been surviving in the area, alone for months, living in cars, eating whatever he could find, barely alive, desperate, terrified. He asked if he could stay with me, join me at the plant, work for food and shelter. He had skills, could fix things, could scavenge, could fight, could help. I said no. Couldn't afford another mouth to feed, couldn't afford the distraction, couldn't afford to care about someone else. He begged, cried, offered everything. I still said no, drove away, left him standing in the street, watched him disappear in the rearview mirror. Another person I'd failed, another weight, another reason to hate what I'd become. Day 100, I crossed 3 months, 100 days of survival. Should have been celebration, should have been achievement. Felt like nothing, just another day, another calculation, another mark on the wall. 90 gallons of fuel remaining, 6 days. Then what? Then the pickup becomes useless. Then I'm trapped at the plant. Then I starve or freeze or get overrun. Then it ends. 100 days of fighting to reach day 101. What was the point? What had I accomplished? I was alive. That was all. And that was starting to feel like not enough. Day 102, the hospital community sent a message. Radio message, CB radio, channel 19. They were under attack. Major assault. Needed help. Needed support. Needed anyone. They broadcasted coordinates. Broadcasted a plea. Broadcasted desperation. I listened. Did nothing. Couldn't help. Had 60 gallons of fuel. Had limited ammunition. Had no engine 7. Had no water weapon. Had nothing to offer except my own death. So I stayed at the plant. Listened to the radio. Heard the gunfire in the distance. Heard the screaming. Heard it stop on day 103. The hospital fell. 30 more people dead. Medical knowledge lost. Resources lost. Humanity lost. And I'd listened to it happen, done nothing again. Day 105, infected found the water plant. Not a small group, hundreds, maybe thousands. They came from the city. Moving together, migrating, following some instinct, some pattern. They hit the fence. Started pushing, testing, probing, looking for weakness. I watched from the control room, counted them, stopped counting at 500. There were more, many more. This was a horde, a real horde, and they were at my door. I activated the stationary pump, the one I'd salvaged from engine 7, connected hoses, set up defensive positions, prepared for siege. I had unlimited water, had good positions, had height advantage, could defend, could hold, could survive this. Had to survive this. No choice, no escape, no backup. Just me and the pump and the water and the infected trying to break through. Day 106, the assault began. They pushed the fence. It bent, bowed, held barely. I opened fire, water at maximum pressure, swept the fence line, knocked them down. They got back up, more came. I kept firing, burned through water like it was unlimited, because it was. This was what I'd prepared for. This was why I'd chosen the plant. Unlimited water, unlimited defensive capability. I could hold forever, or until I ran out of fuel to run the pump, or until I collapsed from exhaustion, or until they found another way in. Day 107, they found another way in. Didn't break the fence, went under it, dug under. Infected don't dig, shouldn't dig, but these did. Excavated a hole under the fence, crawled through, got inside the perimeter. Maybe 20 infected inside before I realized. By then it was too late to stop them with water. Too close, too dispersed. I had to fight, hand to hand, with axe and shotgun, in the plant yard, while thousands more waited outside the fence. I killed them all. 20, used the shotgun, used the axe, used whatever I had. Got bitten, no, not bitten, scratched, infected fingernails across my arm, drew blood, contamination risk, infection risk, death risk. I washed the wound immediately, doused it with disinfectant, bandaged it, prayed. I'd been exposed. Didn't know if it was enough to infect, didn't know if I was dying. Had to wait, had to see, had to keep fighting while waiting to find out if I was already dead. Day 108, no symptoms, no fever, no aggression, no infection signs. The wound was superficial. The exposure wasn't enough. I was still human, still clean, still alive, still fighting, but the fence was compromised. More would dig through, more would get inside. I had to stop them, had to fill the hole, had to reinforce. But how? With what? While under constant assault. I used water, but not as a weapon, as a tool. I flooded the area inside the fence, used the pump to create a moat. A water-filled trench 3 feet deep circling the entire plant perimeter. The infected couldn't swim, lost coordination in water, drowned, got stuck. The trench became a barrier, a killing field. They'd fall in and couldn't get out, would thrash and drown and die. I created a mass grave, a water grave, hundreds of infected corpses floating in the trench. Disgusting, horrific, effective. Day 110, the assault broke. Not because they gave up, because they ran out. The horde depleted itself against my defenses. Thousands of infected became hundreds of corpses. The survivors, maybe 200 infected, still mobile, dispersed, wandered away, lost cohesion, lost purpose. The plant I had held, alone, defending one position for 5 days straight, barely eating, barely sleeping, just fighting, just surviving, just refusing to die. But the cost was high. I'd burned 40 gallons of diesel running the pump continuously, had 20 gallons remaining. 1 day of mobile operations, or 3 days of stationary pump operations. That was it. That was all. After that, no fuel, no pump, no defense, no mobility, nothing. The countdown was over. I was out of time. Day 112, I made a decision. I'd go back to the truck stop, the one with the massive fuel reserves. I'd do it right this time. Use the pickup to transport water from the plant to the truck stop. Set up the portable pump. Clear the infected. Access the fuel. One final mission, one final risk. Do or die, literally, because if I failed, I was dead anyway, stranded with no fuel. No options, no hope. Better to die trying than to die waiting. Day 113, I loaded the pickup, took the portable pump, took 100 gallons of water in containers, took the shotgun, took ammunition, last 50 rounds, took everything I might need, left everything else, left the plant, left my base, left my safety, drove toward the truck stop, toward the infected, toward fuel or death. No middle ground, no alternatives, just outcome, live or die. That was day 113. I reached the truck stop at noon. The infected were still there. Fewer now, maybe 100. Manageable if I was smart, if I was lucky, if everything went right. I set up the portable pump, connected it to my water containers, aimed the hose, started spraying. The pump worked. Briefly. Cleared maybe 20 infected before overheating again. Same problem as last time. The pump couldn't handle sustained operations. Wasn't designed for combat. Was designed for utility. For draining pools. For transferring water. Not for fighting infected. The pump died. I had 80 gallons of water remaining. No way to pressurize it. No way to use it as a weapon. Just water. Useless water. And 100 infected between me and the fuel pumps. I was fucked. I used the shotgun. Started shooting. Killed the closest infected. Cleared a path. Moved forward. Shotgun was loud. Attracted more infected from surrounding areas. They came running, not running, walking fast, but toward me. Toward the noise. I kept shooting. Kept moving. Reached the fuel pumps. Had maybe 10 rounds left. Maybe 30 infected surrounding me. Closing in. No time to refuel properly. Just had to survive. I found a fuel pump nozzle. Found diesel. Started pumping. Manual pump, no power. Had to hand pump slow. Exhausting. The infected were getting closer. 20 feet. 15 feet. I pumped faster. Got 5 gallons. 10 gallons. 15 gallons. The infected were at 10 feet. I could smell them. Could hear them. Could see them reaching. I kept pumping. 20 gallons. 25 gallons. They were at 5 feet. I grabbed the shotgun. Fired into the crowd. Dropped 3 board seconds. Kept pumping. 30 gallons. 35 gallons. Good enough. Had to be. I grabbed the container, ran shotgun in one hand. Fuel in the other. Infected grabbed at me. Missed. I reached the pickup. Threw the container in the truck bed. Jumped in the cab. Started the engine. Infected swarmed the truck. Pounded on windows. Tried to break through. I put it in gear. Drove forward through the infected. Felt impacts. Felt bodies under the wheels. Felt resistance. Pushed through. Broke free. Escaped. Alive. Bleeding from a dozen scratches. Exhausted. Traumatized. But alive. With 35 gallons of fuel. 2 more days of life. 2 more days to figure out what came next. Day 115. I realized there was no next. I'd fought for 115 days. Fought hard. Fought smart. Used every advantage. And I was down to 55 gallons of fuel. 3 days. That was it. That was the end. No more gas stations. No more fire stations. No more truck stops. I'd exhausted every source within range. There was no more fuel. The game was over. I'd lost. Not to the infected. Not to hostile survivors. To logistics. To mathematics. To the simple reality that fuel is finite and eventually runs out. I'd reached the end. Day 115 was the beginning of the end. By day 118, the pickup would be dead. By day 120, I'd be out of options, out of moves, out of hope. Day 118, the pickup ran dry. I was driving back from a final scavenging run when the engine sputtered, coughed, died, out of fuel, completely empty. I was 3 miles from the plant. Had to walk, carrying 50 pounds of supplies, through infected territory, alone, vulnerable, exposed. This was it. This was the moment I'd been preparing for and dreading. The moment the advantages ran out and I became just another survivor. Just another person trying not to die. Just another victim waiting to happen. I walked carefully, quietly, avoided main streets, took alleys, moved through shadows, saw infected, avoided them, couldn't fight, no ammunition left. Had used the last rounds at the truck stop, just had the axe, the Halligan bar, melee weapons, last resort weapons, desperate weapons. I made it back to the plant, took 4 hours, arrived at dusk, exhausted, bleeding from reopened wounds, dehydrated, starving, but alive, still fighting, still refusing to die even when every advantage was gone, still surviving on stubbornness and spite and will. That was day 118, that was the new reality. No mobility, no fuel, no engine, just the plant, just the water, just whatever I could defend from this position, just waiting, for rescue that wasn't coming, for spring, for something, for anything, for the end. Day 124 months exactly. I heard vehicles, multiple engines, heavy vehicles, coming toward the plant. I grabbed the binoculars, looked, saw military trucks, National Guard, a convoy, real military, real rescue. They were clearing the area, establishing a safe zone, creating perimeter, setting up operations, and they were coming toward my plant, toward me, toward salvation. I activated the stationary pump, had just enough fuel for 1 more hour of operations, connected the hoses, prepared defensive positions, not to fight them, to signal them, to show capability, to prove value, to make them want to recruit me rather than just evacuate me, to leverage my position into something better than refugee status, to turn survival into advantage one final time. They reached the fence, saw the water defenses, saw the trench full of corpses, saw the fortifications, saw the fire truck, saw everything I'd built, called out, "Survivor, we're National Guard, you're safe." Opened the gate, I activated the pump, sprayed water into the air, showed them the capability, showed them Engine 7's pump still worked, showed them I had unlimited water, showed them value. Then I opened the gate, let them in. Let rescue happen, let myself stop fighting for the first time in 120 days. Let myself collapse, let myself be human again instead of survivor. They evacuated me, took me to the safe zone, military base, Fort Carson, Colorado, far from LA, safe, secured, protected. I spent 2 weeks in medical treatment for injuries, for malnutrition, for infections, for psychological trauma, for everything 120 days of hell had done to my body and mind. They evaluated, they documented, they categorized. I was a success story. Survived 120 days alone using firefighting equipment to fight the infected. Longest confirmed solo survival in the Los Angeles area. Record holder, legend, hero. I didn't feel like a hero, felt like a survivor who'd let too many people die, who'd made too many cold calculations, who'd chosen self over others too many times, who'd become something less than human in order to stay alive. The psychologist said survivor's guilt, said trauma response, said normal reactions to abnormal situations. I said it was truth, said it was recognition, said it was acknowledgement of what I'd become, what the apocalypse had made me, what Engine 7 had enabled me to be. Epilogue 6 months later. I'm writing this from Fort Carson. 6 months after rescue, April now, spring. Temperature is 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm, pleasant, safe. The base has 5,000 survivors, has infrastructure, has military protection, has society, has civilization rebuilding, has everything I should want, has everything that should make me happy, has everything except Engine 7. They brought it here. The National Guard recovered Engine 7 from the plant, brought it to the base, not to use its broken, but to display, to memorialize, to show what one person with the right tools could do. It sits in front of the command building now, bright red, stripped of equipment, but still recognizable, still iconic, still Engine 7, a monument to survival, to adaptation, to using civilian tools for military purposes, to creative problem-solving in extreme situations. To me, people visit it, survivors, military personnel, politicians who've come to tour the safe zone. They take pictures, they ask about it, they ask about me, want to hear stories, want details, want inspiration, want to know how I survived 120 days alone in a city of infected, using a fire truck and water as a weapon, want to know the tactics, the strategies, the mindset, want to replicate it, want to teach it, want to weaponize it for future operations. I tell them the truth. I survived by being selfish, by choosing myself over others repeatedly, by letting people die when helping might have risked my supplies or position, By becoming someone who calculated the value of human life in gallons of fuel and water. By losing my humanity piece by piece. By paying a cost that success stories don't usually mention. By winning survival at the expense of soul. That's the truth. That's what it took. That's what Engine 7 enabled me to do. They don't want to hear that. Want the Hollywood version, the hero version, the version where I saved people and fought bravely and never compromised. That's not what happened. What happened was math, cold math, resource management, risk assessment, survival calculations that treated people as variables instead of humans. That's what it took. That's what I did. That's what I'll live with forever. The physical damage is permanent. My arm, the one that got scratched, has nerve damage, limited range of motion, chronic pain. The exposure didn't infect me, but the wound got infected with regular bacteria. Nearly lost the arm. Kept it, but it's never been right since. Can't lift heavy objects. Can't operate a pump properly. Ironically, I can't be a firefighter anymore. The job that gave me the skills to survive has been taken away by the survival itself. Poetic, cruel, permanent. The psychological damage is worse. I have severe PTSD, nightmares every night, drowning in water, burning in fire, being torn apart by infected, watching people I didn't save die over and over. Can't sleep more than 3 hours at a time. Can't be in enclosed spaces. Triggers claustrophobia from the garage and plant operations. Can't be around large groups, triggers paranoia from the apartment complex and hospital attacks. Can't form relationships, can't trust people, can't care about people, can't risk caring because caring means vulnerability and vulnerability means death. The isolation broke something fundamental, something that won't heal, something permanent. I still talk to myself, full conversations, arguing with imaginary versions of my crew. Of the woman I let die at the fence. Of the kid I turned away. Of the apartment complex residents I couldn't save. Of everyone I failed. They're always there. Always talking. Always accusing. Always asking why I survived and they didn't. I don't have good answers, just have the truth. I survived because I chose to, because I made the hard calls. Because I valued my life over theirs. That's not heroism. That's math. Cold, brutal math. They want me to teach firefighters how to survive. Want me to develop training programs. Want me to turn 120 days of trauma into doctrine, into procedures, into things people can learn and replicate. Want me to weaponize my experience. I've refused so far because teaching it means encouraging it. It means telling people it's okay to make those choices, to become what I became, to lose what I lost, to survive at any cost. And I'm not sure that's a message worth spreading. Not sure that kind of survival is worth achieving. Not sure I'd do it again if I had the choice. But I didn't have a choice. That's what they don't understand. That's what the politicians and the military planners and the survival instructors don't get. When it's you and the infected and limited resources and no backup and no hope, you don't make choices. You react. You adapt. You become whatever you need to become to see tomorrow. Choice requires options. I had none. Just survival or death. Engine 7 or nothing. Water or bullets. Math or morality. I chose survival. Chose Engine 7. Chose math. And paid the price. Still paying it. Will pay it forever. Engine 7 sits outside in the sun. Bright red paint fading. Equipment gone. Just a shell. Like me. Something that used to have purpose and function, and now is just hollow. A monument. A memorial. A warning. A reminder of what survival costs. Of what it takes. Of what it makes you. I visit it sometimes. Stand in front of it. Remember the 120 days. Remember the power. Remember the capability. Remember feeling invincible as long as I had water and fuel. Remember the moment the fuel ran out and the invincibility proved to be illusion. Remember that survival is temporary. That eventually everyone runs out of fuel, water, ammunition, luck, or will. That I just lasted longer than most. That lasting longer doesn't mean winning, just means dying later. They ask if I'd do it again, if given the choice. If I could go back to day one, would I take Engine 7? Would I fight the way I fought? Would I make the same choices? Would I survive the same way? I don't know. Honestly don't know. Part of me says yes because I survived. Because I'm here. Because survival is always better than death. But another part says no because of what it cost. Because of what it made me. Because I'm not sure the person who emerged from those 120 days is better than the person who would have died on day one. Not sure cold survival is preferable to warm death. Not sure living as a shell is better than dying as a person. But I'm here, still breathing, still existing. Engine 7 brought me through 120 days. Water kept me alive when everything else failed. The pump was my weapon, the hose was my shield. The tank was my lifeline. And it worked. It all worked. I survived. Against infected hordes and hostile survivors, and equipment failures, and resource depletion, and isolation, and winter, and everything else. I survived. Using a fire truck. Using water. Using math. Using whatever it took. I'm Jake Morrison, former firefighter. Current survivor, living with permanent damage from 120 days in a fire truck during the zombie apocalypse. I lost my crew. Lost my truck. Lost my humanity. Kept my life. Don't know if that was a fair trade. Don't know if I won or lost. Just know I'm still here. Still alive. Still trying to figure out what that means, what it's worth, what comes next. Engine 7 saved me. Engine 7 destroyed me. Both things are true. Both things are permanent. Both things define who I am now, what I became, what I'll always be, the firefighter who survived by becoming something cold, something calculating, something that chose survival over humanity and paid the price. That's my story. That's my truth. That's my 120 days. Water and fire and infected and death and survival and loss and everything in between. That's what it took. That's what I paid. That's what I'll carry forever. Stay safe. Stay human if you can. And remember, survival is possible, even in a fire truck, even using water, even alone. You just have to be willing to become whatever it takes. Have to be willing to pay whatever it costs. Have to be willing to lose pieces of yourself until survival is all that's left. I did it. I survived. I'm here. And I'm not sure if that makes me lucky or cursed. Probably both. Definitely both. Thanks for listening to my story. My 120 days. My truth. My warning. My testament to what survival means. What it costs. What it makes you. Remember Engine 7. Remember the water. Remember that sometimes the tools designed to save lives are the ones that save yours. And remember that saving your life doesn't always mean saving your soul. Sometimes you survive. Sometimes survival is enough. Sometimes it has to be, because the alternative is death. And death is permanent. And survival, even survival that hollows you out, is still better. Still preferable. Still worth fighting for. I survived. That's all. That's everything. That's my story.